I can't hear Marty.
Yeah, what
Logan, can you hear
happened?
Marty?
I hit mute on my mic. We should be good now.
There we go.
Silent open. First
Well,
words where I can't hear Marty.
I think the first words might have been my wife yelling at the dog, but who knows?
Yeah, we'll find out. Freaks, welcome. Friday, July 5th,
I like
2024.
silent cold opens. As the bull market heats up, we should just lengthen the silent cold open longer and longer. You don't know how long it's going to be. It could be like a 2 minute just moment of silence before we get started.
Yeah, a moment of silence for everybody who was left on the sidelines.
For all the bears.
They're going to need it. The Bears are winning right now, though. The price of Bitcoin is crashing. We're here to discuss why it's crashing. Kidding. Yeah, maybe we'll touch on it. But Matt, I had my first.
That was just
My
a
first
fun. That was just a fun clickbait headline we chose because we couldn't come up with another headline. And also, Marty said there was going to be no dumps this cycle. So,
it's
uh,
officially a dump, down 24% from the all-time high.
Marty,
Um,
I leveraged the house because you said that. How do
yeah,
you
well,
how do
I'm
you
sorry.
tonight?
I'm sorry. I hope you guys will get through this rough time.
If you send Marty an invoice, he'll
I'll
reimburse
recoup
you for
your
it.
losses. Yeah, that's on me. That's on me. It's Uncle Marty. Hand up. Said no dumps. Officially have our first dump after that. It's here. Matt, I had my first. Speaking of first, I had my first old man freak out this week. I called a 12-year-old a dickhead.
I was about to ask you what you meant by that. So why was he being a dickhead?
He was being a dickhead. I came out of Wawa, um, a very famous convenience store up here in the Northeast in the Philadelphia area. I was walking out back to my bike, and there was a gaggle of 12-year-olds on their bikes. And initially, I thought, oh, nice, good to see the youngins getting out on the island by themselves, unsupervised, having some fun, hanging out in the Wawa parking lot. And then one of them picked up a half drank big gulp that was hanging out on the asphalt and like Olympic threw it, like like did like what is that called? I actually used to do this event.
Oh, not pole vaulting. The other one.
Not pole vaulting, shot putting. He
Yeah.
uh he did the shot put. He shot putted the big gulp against the wall, vandalized the wall with some high fructose corn syrup, and I had
Wow.
like an old man visceral like I was like, "Yo!" And all the 12-year-olds turned around. I pointed at the one that did it. I said, "You pick that up and you throw that out right now, you little dickhead." And it was hilarious. He picked it up, he threw it out, he said sorry, and all of his friends were like, "Why'd you do that, dude? We told you not to do that." And then I got on my
All
bike.
sold them out.
Yeah, I got on my
They were
bike, was riding away. I was like, "Oh man, I'm officially an old man now." I just yelled at the
well.
youth.
You know what happened, right? You did the grandstand post about living at your trusted village by the sea,
This
and
was
there had to be at least some small level of vandalism that happened as a result of it.
it's funny that happened before that note, that tweet, but
Oh wow!
you got to self
Damn.
police on your village by the sea. You got to let the youth know. Hey, step in line. We don't litter. We don't vandalize. Don't be a little dickhead. Okay.
We got Chief White in the Noster comments saying Marty's out there belligerent, snapping boards at the skate park,
No, I would never do that. I would never do that
unless they litter.
unless they litter. Clean your beaches. Keep your towns clean. Do not throw big gulps at the wall, please. That's all I ask. We want to live in a civil society. We need to police the youth.
We have like it's kind of a dead live chat both on YouTube and Noster right now.
I mean, everybody's pretty checked out. It's 4th of July weekend. Everybody
Yeah,
here in the
it's kind
States
of
probably has off.
holiday-ish.
It's Friday
I
night in Europe.
well, to the ride or dies. By the way, the Noster live chat once again reminder is at rhr.tv/stream. You don't need a Noster account to join it. Uh, for the few and the proud that are in the live chat with us, we did have an argument before the rip. So this rip is called "Why is the Bitcoin price crashing?" Exclamation point question mark. And Marty thinks the exclamation point should be after the question mark. So you can sound off in the comments. I'm curious which side you fall on. I think the exclamation point goes first.
I mean, I'm pretty confident I'm right. Whenever I do it, that's what I do, question mark, exclamation point, because I think you have to first recognize that it's a question, and then you use the exclamation point to explain.
Recognize the exclamation first. Why is the Bitcoin price crashing?
I don't think you had to change your intonation there for crashing.
Maybe it's like a British versus American thing, which is fitting as of July 4th.
Yeah,
I actually got to celebrate. I celebrated July 4th in Switzerland, so it was ahead of time before everyone else. It was like I was living in the future.
How was it?
Lugano is awesome. Highly recommend people go visit. They have a really strong Bitcoin community over there. It's beautiful. It's safe. The guys at Plan B are doing a great job. They have this nice hub that they've been building out for the last 2 years. It's almost finished. It's an old bank building, which is like a nice meme value right in the center of town. But yeah, it was really fucking cool. And this was the last week of the Plan B business school. So they actually have two business schools that run counter each other. So this business school is basically like their non-technical business school. So you want to work in the Bitcoin space, you want to be like a CFO, head of comms, stuff like that, like things that are not necessarily completely technical in nature. You go to this one, and then during the fall they do their technical one, which is more dev engineer focused. And so this specifically was their summer school of the business school. So it was their top 21 students were invited out for this, and there was different presentations and workshops and seminars, and all the kids were kids. Some of them were older than me, but they were very motivated, and it was I love working with people that are motivated and excited to work in the space. It just was really great to do.
Yeah. What did you present on?
I presented on funding freedom tech infrastructure. So it was like a joint presentation of 1031 and OpenSats. It was fun. It was good. I mean, I humbly thought I did pretty well, and I leaned into Q&A. I always like Q&A. Q&A is fun.
Matt is a big Q&A guy. He's like 10 minutes of panel talk and then 45 minutes of Q&A. This
time was a little bit longer. Like I actually had slides and shit. I figured like these guys were like at the tail end of business school. Like I had to show up with some pretty slides.
You're historically not a slide guy. So you went straight business trip over to Switzerland.
I went all out.
Yeah. Love to see it. Shout out to the freaks in Lugano who went through this class and got Matt to make some slides. It's not an easy thing to do.
You know what happened with multiple of them though?
What?
There's someone on Twitter that's evil Matt Odell. And they thought that was like my main account because there's no other Matt Odell on Twitter. So
has evil Matt Odell been tweeting?
I've been made fun of on this show by the freaks that I bring up every week that I deleted my Twitter, but apparently there are people out there that still don't know that. So
evil Matt Odell's last tweet is December 17th, 2020. Imagine not owning more Bitcoin than you do right now. Nah, I can't do it. Stacked them sats.
Yeah, he's probably Nostr only. Good for him.
Yeah. Shout out to you, evil Matt Odell, wherever you are in the world. All right, let's get to it. I gotta get to the beach. So okay. we're gonna rip through this. We got a good list today, a lot to talk about. First, we'll get to the state of the network. Current price of Bitcoin, like I said, we dumped. We're down 23.4% from the all-time high, currently sitting at 56,520 cuck bucks. Sats per cuck buck number go up. This is a good thing for you if you're looking to stack sats. One cuck buck's going to get you 1,770 sats. We're still above a $1 trillion market cap at 1.11 trillion. We're at block height 850,831, which means we've had a difficulty adjustment between last week's show in this week's show, which happened yesterday. It was a negative 5% adjustment. Blocks were coming in at 10 minutes and 34 seconds on average. As of right now, less than a day in, can't take this number at face value, but we are currently 1,937 blocks away from the next free target, which is estimated to be on July 19th, 2024. So it'll be 2 weeks from today. As of right now, it's looking like a negative 13.3% difficulty adjustment. Blocks have been coming in at 11 minutes and 39 seconds on average since yesterday's difficulty adjustment. There are currently 126,885 transactions in Clark's mempool. If we go over to mempool.space, we'll see that there are 197,500 transactions in Wiz's mempool. And if you're looking to get a Bitcoin transaction confirmed rather cheaply, now is the time to do it. We got 7s across the board for low priority, medium priority, and high priority transactions at 7 sats per VByte. Makes sense. Holiday weekend here in the States. The US dominates the Bitcoin market, and so people are not transacting right now. So probably a good weekend.
You don't think it's going to go cheaper, Marty?
I think we're going to clear this weekend if you're looking to consolidate some UTXOs.
Clear this weekend, and there's no dumps to cycle. Marty Brown.
And on that note, let's go over to insights.brains.com to check out the hash price, which is currently sitting at 4.6 cents per terahash per day, which is an all-time low. So miners are struggling out there, even with this difficulty adjustment that happened yesterday. The price fell by 5% along with that 5% difficulty adjustment. So the effect on hash price was negligible. So the negligible, not negligent. It's negligent.
The last year was like negligent price decrease, hash price decrease.
Yeah. So it's tough out there for miners right now. The post having mining economics are not great, as has been the case historically. And so I would expect to see more downward difficulty adjustments over the next few months.
There was a student who came up to me after my presentation. She was like, I was about to ape into mining and your presentation changed my mind. I tried to scare the shit out of them a little bit in terms of how hard it is to be profitable on a Bitcoin standard.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to see like rose-colored glasses. Like there's a ton of opportunity in the space, but it is very much survival of the fittest, particularly in mining.
Yeah, and if you want to get a deep insight into that as somebody in a company that has experienced this from a firsthand perspective, the Cathedra annual shareholder letter dropped this week, and Drew and AJ put a lot of thought into the mining industry, what the economics look like, and what it's going to take to succeed as a mining company in the future. And the gist is you're going to have to really vertically integrate and diversify revenue streams to supplement the mining income, which is historically volatile and comes with razor thin margins if you're not positioned well from a cost perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'll use that moment to. I feel like when you said it on air, I didn't fully appreciate what a good meme or term it was. But mullet mining operations, or was it AI in the front, Bitcoin in the back?
Mullet data centers, yes.
Mullet data centers. On that note, though, this does remind me, a huge congratulations to the boys at Grid and to CleanSpark. CleanSpark acquired Grid last week, right after our show, I believe, was live. So
yeah,
I think it was a pretty big win-win for both teams involved.
Big win for both. CleanSpark acquired Grid at $155 million valuation. The teams are going to stay on. And Grid has line of sight to 400 megawatts of expansion within Tennessee. And so I think that was really the carrot that convinced CleanSpark to bring them on. That is one of the scarcest resources in the mining industry is rack space and access to power. And if you find a company that has line of sight to hundreds of megawatts, it makes sense to pick them up. Shout out to those teams. The news of that, Matt, what are your thoughts about the news leaking on Twitter a little early?
I mean, I think people should be aware of securities violations.
Beware, freaks. Beware. Sometimes trying to get clout on Twitter can bite you in the ass. Not to say anybody's got bit in the ass yet, but very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just be smart out there. Don't break laws.
Don't break laws. Onto the list. First thing on the list is a pretty critical vulnerability. Regression is what it's called. It's vulnerability in OpenSSH, which potentially puts 700,000 Linux boxes at risk. It's a single handler race condition in OpenSSH's server SSHD, which allows unauthenticated remote code execution as root on glibc-based Linux systems, posing a security risk. This issue affects SSHD in its default configuration. And so if you are remotely accessing your Linux machines, you have been, you're probably vulnerable to this attack.
Yeah. Specifically, if you're running like any kind of VPS, probably running Linux, you are most likely connecting via SSH, and so you should go and update. And if you're not connecting through SSH, it might still be open regardless. So update. That's why we put it at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Beware. And this goes to Bitcoin nodes that are running
in the cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah, beware. OpenSSH vulnerability.
Yeah, I mean, Marty, you kind of caught me off guard bringing that up on the last topic, and I'm relatively new to having a fund that invests in a company that is public, that goes public. I think it's and so it's an extra sensitive topic in terms of like insider info and stuff like that. So it's important to realize, first of all, there's deliberate legal reasons why Marty and I don't discuss certain public companies because we're not legally allowed to. And in this specific instance, Marty and I we weren't even aware of. It was kept so tight-lipped that we weren't aware of the grid Clean Spark transaction until after it was public information. But someone unrelated to Grid did tweet out that they heard it was going to happen, and the price moved on the open market as a result. So yes,
yeah,
I feel like we were a little bit vague there, and I just want to be very clear. Yeah, see, there's like people in the comments like, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. That's fine too, but
I'm just being a little antagonistic here, freaks. Beware. Tight-lipped.
I mean, I think I can say that it was Mike Alfred tweeted it out.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to say that.
At like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next story. Mt. Gox starts Bitcoin repayments after a decade-long wait. Big deal. As it said, decade-long wait.
This goes to the topic of our... we actually haven't talked about why the Bitcoin price is crashing. I did get a lot of texts about it.
Is it the Mt. Gox coins?
No, I mean, look, I think it's important to stay humble, stack sats. I think there's always going to be volatility in Bitcoin, and it'll always catch you off guard. Or usually it'll catch you off guard, particularly if you're leverage trading or something like that. The there is like a dual narrative that is particularly probably scaring less experienced Bitcoin holders, and that's Mt. Gox finally distributing Bitcoin, and under the presumption that people will sell their Bitcoin when they finally get it, and then the German government is dumping a bunch of Bitcoin, but I think it's Bitcoin is quite liquid. I don't think they're making that sizable of an impact on the actual price. I think it probably is adding to fear. But we've talked about in the past, it's rare for the Bitcoin price to be over all-time high before a halving. Usually it's depressed going into a halving and then pumps afterwards. But the ETFs changed that a bit because it opened up, a whole new addressable market of people who could access at least Bitcoin price exposure through the Bitcoin ETFs. And presumably they're all holding actual Bitcoin on the underside, even though most of them are not doing proof of reserves. So I think we got a little bit overextended, and now we're in the time period where, there's a little bit of corrections that happen, but long term, I don't think anything really changes. Also, I think it's kind of ridiculous that I wouldn't assume that a lot of these people that are holding Mt. Gox IOUs are going to just immediately sell their Bitcoin.
No, well, to add to the story, let's add some context to it. So this happened today, around 142,000 Bitcoin, 143,000 Bitcoin cash and fiat currency, worth 69 billion yen or $428 million, were returned to 20,000 individual creditors. Alex Storm from Galaxy Digital, head of Bitcoin research there, had a pretty good comment in regards to the story. There's also likelihood that a number of Bitcoin investors, Mt. Gox, have already cashed out. In the 10 years since the exchange filed for bankruptcy, the secondary market sprung up for those who wanted to liquidate their bankruptcy claims. So those who've held out are the true believers. And so for those who are unaware,
because it could be also the people who bought it in secondary sell.
Yeah, and you imagine the people bought it in secondary were funds who probably selling at a discount.
They're more likely to sell because they're they've been waiting for their liquidity, and they're not necessarily ideologically aligned.
Yeah, but the Mt. Gox users who didn't sell their claims in secondary, as Alex says, are probably true believers and are less likely to sell than the operators of the secondary market claims. So, but who cares? It's out there. If people are selling, it's going to find its way into the hands of hodlers and other actors in the space. And summer of dump is upon us right now.
Yeah, this is why if you are using a KYC service, I really do like the auto stacking, right? Because it just takes emotion out of it. We were last week, we broke on air, Strike having free DCA. So you get the fee benefit of that too. I think River has free DCA as well. But you just set it and forget it. And then when these dumps inevitably happen, you have no emotion attached to it, and you just acquire more sats.
You want to know why we're dumping?
Why?
Because I tweeted at Dave Portnoy that Bitcoin's not going to get into the $40,000 range, and he should start DCAing into Bitcoin. Of course, a week later, we hit 53,000. Could easily dip into the 40s, and Dave's going to have a, "What the fuck were you talking about, Bitcoin, Marty? I'm smarter than you." So that's on me.
Well, I still don't think it's going to go in the 40s, but we'll see.
We shall see.
No price calls this cycle for me. Just stay humble, stack sats. There will be dumps. There will be pumps.
As always.
Adoption increases, price should increase. Well, purchasing power should increase until the dollar fails.
Yeah. You got a big I told you so coming up next on the list. X and Coinbase user data has potentially been exposed as KYC provider. Auto 10 ticks, AU 10 ticks left admin credentials open for 18 months. Really not great. Ideal. So this is the Israeli surveillance company that was doing KYC for X and Coinbase. And this seems like a pretty big mess up on the
They were
scale of
doing it
which,
for like Uber drivers too, and like a bunch of other companies. It was a lot of companies. Single central point of failure.
seems almost intent. Like, how could you have this credentials exposed for 18 months? Aren't you supposed to be a security firm? Like, isn't that like,
I mean,
shouldn't you?
what would be the argument for it being intentional? Like, this is pretty bad for their business, and they presumably share it with all the governments anyway. So,
Yeah,
if they wanted to do it intentionally malicious, they would like sell the data privately.
maybe they just needed an out. Like, hey, we're going to keep it open, and if
I don't know.
these
It's pretty bad.
governments, intelligence agencies get access and get the information and don't tell us, there's nothing. We're technically not working with the governments, you know.
But regardless, this is just consistent with what we've said for many years on the show, which is that KYC AML policies don't actually prevent criminals. They get around it with bought, stolen identity documents. And what it does do is it just puts billions of non-criminal users, law-abiding users at risk because these lists are always shared, almost always shared, very hard to secure. Very often they're compromised. You should just assume that eventually they will be compromised. So having massive lists of all your users and their intimate personal information is an incredibly high risk. On the Bitcoin side, we've seen this become a major, point of concern because pretty much all the regulated Bitcoin businesses are keeping lists of Bitcoiners and their transaction history. But unfortunately, we're seeing that spread into social media, Uber drivers, and all different aspects of our lives where you're being just bag tagged, add to lists. I actually have a buddy who's in Turkey right now. And because of Turkey's internet restrictions, his Airbnb requires KYC information on him in order for him to get the Wi-Fi password, just in case he does something the Turkish government doesn't like. The Airbnb guy doesn't want to go to jail. He wants to make sure that the person who's renting his home is the one who's on the line.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Which gets to another thing we don't have on the list, but this happened last week after we recorded. As is typical with these big news events, they wait until after RHR because they want a week to settle. But Chevron deference getting overturned by the Supreme Court.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's the first step on the journey to gutting the administrative state. And so for those of you listeners who are not American or unaware of the gravity of this case, back in the 80s, there was a ruling that basically gave any federal agency the ability to interpret laws a certain way and make regulations around that interpretation, even if laws were not explicitly written for particular regulations. This two fishermen, I believe, took the case all the way up to the Supreme Court, and last week a final decision was made, and it basically overturned the ability of these agencies to basically create laws out of thin air without explicit approval from Congress. And so whether it's EPA stuff, energy stuff, FDA stuff,
All the alphabet stuff.
Yeah, all the alphabet soup regulators have been dealt a serious blow, which many people in the mainstream media are kvetching about and screaming that the sky is falling and this is terrible for democracy and a safe and civil society. But I think it is pretty clear that the outgrowth of the administrative state over the last 4 decades has been severely detrimental to free markets. It's enabled incumbents to build up these regulatory moats that make it hard for companies to compete and upstart companies to compete with the incumbents. And then as it pertains to Bitcoin, That's why the industry has been walking on eggshells for its first 15 years of existence, because they've basically been put in this position where they have to wait for quote unquote regulatory clarity before they have any sense of confidence that what they're doing is not illegal. And so now with the overturning of this law or this ruling, the regulatory clarity will come directly from Congress. And if it doesn't, then, and it's not explicitly illegal, people should be able to go about their business without having to worry about an alphabet soup agency marshing their mallow.
I hate the term regulatory clarity.
Exactly. That's like the whole, like, regulatory clarity shouldn't exist as a phrase, and it only has because of Chevron deference.
Awesome. Sorry I didn't put that on the list. I forgot.
That's a good one.
I'm a little bit jet lagged.
I brought it up because that's actually one thing that's not clear to me is all this KYC AML regulation, which a lot of it comes from FATF and FinCEN.
Is it like Secrecy Act stuff?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, and I haven't had enough time to do research into it. Like, does it mean that anything that's not explicitly laid out in the Bank Secrecy Act, like, is that just rendered null and void moving forward? I don't know. Sound off in the comments if you do.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. Until then, there's a lot of great tools at nokyconly.com.
Go check it out. All right, next up on the list. This was pretty big, came out in Bitcoin Optech, I believe this morning or yesterday. Bitcoin Core introduces a new security disclosure policy. I believe alongside this policy, they made the market aware of, I believe, 7 critical bugs that have existed in different versions of Core throughout its history.
Yeah, they want to. They just want to standardize and formalize the security disclosure practice, and there's going to be a hub for it now where you can easily see it all, and there's like set policy in place and how it gets disclosed and when it gets disclosed, which is really good to see. There's a lot of money on the line, so it's good to have these processes as clean and not vague as possible. Now, it is important to realize that in certain situations, there is no perfect answer. When you have a global, decentralized financial network operating in the open, I think there will be certain exceptions to the rules. If something's like particularly, they intentionally have like a delay in practice here, but for better or for worse, a lot of times these things come down to like 6 people in a room trying to be like, what the fuck do we do, with no easy answers. What I'm reminded of is, what was it? Was it 2018?
2018, yeah.
Bug?
Yeah. We were headed to Riga, and I was on the same flight as Matt Corallo as he was disclosing that bug to the mailing list. It was an interesting part of Bitcoin history that, like, weirdly enough, like, I had some unique perspective into.
Yes, no perfect answer for a lot of these things, but
yeah,
it's good to see.
Yeah, very good to see. Shout out to all the core contributors, and I believe the team at Brink and Chain Code were fundamental in this as well. So great to see. Let's see. All right, we come to the OpenSats shill section of the podcast. We've got a new wave of grants that went out this week to 5 individuals and projects. And since you are the co-founder of OpenSats, I'll let you take it away.
This is awesome. It's always exciting to announce new grants. We have some cool ones here. So this is obviously our 5th wave of Bitcoin grant.
Hand up. I said 5 grants, 5th wave, many more than 5 grants. It's on me.
Yeah, I think at this point, there's over 150 open source contributors that are receiving grants from OpenSats, which is fucking crazy to think about. We're still a very young organization, and just the scale we're hitting is starting to really become almost hard to comprehend and appreciate. But a lot of really interesting projects here. I mean, one that I'm particularly excited about is the Validating Lightning Signer project, which is a project that separates the keys from your Lightning nodes. So like right now, by default, Lightning nodes are hot wallets, right? They're running on the internet. The keys are always online. And what VLS wants to do is make it so you can have a hardware wallet, for instance, that is holding the keys and signing the transactions. Which, as we start to see more and more money, especially in these very large, like professional routing nodes, that becomes more and more important. We're supporting Tor support for BDK and Fediment. BDK, both of these projects are essentially, they're building block projects, right? Like they're like open source bases that a lot of wallets are then built on top of. So it's good to see people working on Tor support there. I'm really excited about the Crux project, which is like a build your own hardware wallet project. There could be, there's some similarities there with Seed Signer, which more of you are probably familiar with. These guys are trying to take it to an even more security focus, which is awesome. There's Core Lightning Bookkeeper, which is essentially a way to do accounting on like a professional Lightning node, which there's not very many good tools for that. And I would just say the common theme with like a lot of these OpenSats grants, both ones we were already doing and these recent announcements, is a lot of these projects, like it seems pretty obvious if you start to look at them, like they're important building blocks, they're important pieces of infrastructure and open source infrastructure that are not easy to monetize in any kind of way, which is why you need to have no strings attached grants provided to support the developers and contributors that make those possible. But yeah, they're all awesome. The full list. I'll add the ones I didn't say is Cove, Crux Installer, which is part of the Crux project, Lightning Network Protocol Test Framework, Macadamia, U3XO, and yeah, that's it. That's the 10 that we announced. And then we also announced our latest Nostr LTS grant recipient. So LTS stands for Long-Term Support Grant, which is a 2-year term with a yearly amount, right? So you can imagine it's like, $100K per year for 2 years, and it's paid monthly. So it provides a little bit more quote unquote job security for certain, for like really heavyweight contributors and developers that are doing a lot of really good work out there. The LTS is set up so it's a little bit less structured, right? I think we talked about this last week with JB55's grant. He works on many different things, and as long as he's actually putting work in and putting real measurable work in or whatever, it doesn't really matter what they focus on. It's a little bit more open-ended, while the single-purpose grants are a little bit more project-focused. But anyway, in either situation, whether it's a long-term support grant or regular grants, their grant recipients are expected to provide quarterly reviews. So they submit like a quarterly review document. They don't have to like jump on a call or anything. But just to make sure that there's not like the tenure issue you see in academia with someone has like a guaranteed salary, so they just stop doing work. Unfortunately, in open source, it's generally easier to measure that because of commits and actual like auditable proof of work. So they have a quarterly review process. And then the second thing is on LTS, their renewals are easier. So one of the things when we spoke to a lot of open source contributors and developers, it's a real mental and time sink applying for grants over and over again. And it especially creates a mental burden when you're like 4 months away from the end of your grant and you're like, oh shit, like I have to see if I can get more money. So we're trying to solve that problem in a responsible way. But anyway, this specific one, his name is Yuri Kishimoto. This guy is a prolific Nostr contributor, particularly on Rust Nostr. So Nostr libraries in Rust, and making it much easier to build different Nostr clients and apps on top of that foundation. So this is like a fundamental building block of what will probably be much more Nostr infrastructure in the future. So it's really cool to support this guy.
Yeah. Shout out to OpenSats. I am a big fan of all the projects that you handed out grants to, but I do want to highlight and echo what you said. I'm particularly excited for VLS on the Lightning side. I think being able to separate the node from the keys is going to be massive. We actually had Evan present for Zeus at Bitcoin John last month in Philly, and that was one of the questions I asked him: "Is are you excited about VLS?" And he answered, "Yes, it would be massive for somebody like Evan or others that are running nodes and LSPs. The amount of sleepless nights that can be caused by thinking about the amount of money you have locked up in some of these and the key infrastructure would be solved with this solution."
Yeah, I mean it's pretty crazy. Like for years, the default it was like almost to the lack of nuance of not your keys, not your coins, in terms of just like this is best practice, not your keys, not your coins. This is best practice. Always use cold storage for large amounts. Do not connect your keys to the internet if it has a large amount. And then Lightning just flipped the whole script on its head because up until now you can't easily, if at all, have a non-hot Lightning node. So hopefully VLS mitigates that, and it's pretty cool to see that project push forward.
Yeah. Shout out to everybody working on that. All right. Get to the Human Rights Foundation story of the week. Let's get there it is. The image is up. And this week's story comes out of Gaza. Bitcoin donations are helping desperate civilians, which is very important right now. So Palestinian taxi driver Youssef Mahmoud began using Bitcoin to buy critical resources for civilians trapped in war-torn Gaza. Bank apps on our phones are down and banks are freezing accounts in Gaza. We only have cash or Bitcoin, Mahmoud said. He soon launched a project on Geyser, a global crowdfunding platform to fund food, baby supplies, medicine, clothing, potable water, and tents for displaced civilians. Bitcoin donations from around the world amounting to more than 260 million sats, or roughly $146,000, empowered Mahmoud to care for more than 20,000 struggling families in Gaza. Mahmoud's story is an excellent example of how Bitcoin facilitates borderless global crowdfunding initiatives despite government-imposed financial restrictions, even surprisingly in war-torn places and conflict zones. With bank accounts routinely frozen, Hamas exerting complete control, and financial services consistently shuttered in Gaza, you can see why more people over here are now using Bitcoin. There's no other way, Mahmoud explained. So a really powerful story, highlights, again, as the Human Rights Foundation mentioned, the power of a borderless peer-to-peer digital currency. So if you want to read more of these types of stories, the Human Rights Foundation is putting out a weekly newsletter to highlight just this. Go to financialfreedomreport.org and sign up for their newsletter.
Love to see it, particularly just like this guy using Bitcoin donations from around the world to help 20,000 struggling families. Like that magnitude, that's pretty hard to comprehend how many people that is. That's impressive.
Yeah, 1 to 20,000 is high impact.
Exactly why Freedom Money exists.
Yeah. Well, it's basically N to 1 to 20,000. So you have this, yeah. Heart goes out to everybody in Gaza. Pretty terrible shit going on there right now. But we are not a geopolitical podcast. We're a Bitcoin podcast. We'll
I want to say, like, especially, and this is something that like I'm intimately concerned about, or not concerned is the wrong word, but aware of um, the issues of having a centralized actor take donations and then distribute the donations. It's very difficult to do. And we saw the issues with that with the Canadian truckers, right? There was a small group of Bitcoiners that were handling all the donations. So the Canadian government pressured those small groups of people. The dream, in my opinion, the dream is having those 20,000 struggling families be able to receive donations from millions and billions of people around the world directly. post their stories, receive those donations directly, and not have a single middleman that could get pressured. Or in the Canadian truckers instance, have the Canadian truckers, posting online and receiving donations directly in Bitcoin. And I think fundamentally, Nostr will unlock that, like the combination of Nostr and Zaps. So I think it is a bootstrapping problem, and it's a time problem. And this is why I still think, from a pragmatic point of view, OpenSats and how we're trying to run that organization is incredibly important. But like, to bring it back to OpenSats again, like, the dream is that open source contributors are posting and just receiving donations directly from people, and they don't have to deal with a centralized actor that could get potentially corrupted or pressured. So we still have a lot of work to do, but it's important to highlight when it does work. And it can be quite inspiring, and it at least motivates me of why this work is so important.
Yeah. We're going to do it, freaks. We're going to win. All right, we've got software update section of the show coming up. So you know what that means. We got to pull up the Fountain app and check out the top 4 boosts from Rabbit Hole Recap. 311, Julian Assange, free at last. Eric 99 boosted 50,000 sats. Stay humble, stack sats.
Great advice.
Pringle Stacks boosted 44,444 sats. 4s across the board. Palindrome boost. Thank God Julian is free. No fear, just freedom. Fortune favors the brave. Andrew Tate is a cockhead. Final note, stay humble, and we will win. Love you, boys. Love yourself.
Cheers.
At Nat Gas Immersion boosted 33,333 sats. 3s across the board. Palindrome boost. Thank you, gentlemen. Great week for Bitcoin and Liberty. Assange, Chevron deference, and clown show debate. Stay humble, stack sats, stay out of jail, and see you in Nashville. Thank you.
Cheers.
At Mr. Boosted, 21,212 sats. Palindrome boost. Blind boost. Hashtag free Assange. He's free.
Love it. First birthday out of jail.
It's got to feel
like
good.
Years. Not ever, but in like 15 years. Yeah, happy birthday, Julian. And also just a shout out to Ride or Die Freak Mav21, who's currently ruling the roost in the Nostr stream with his 21,000 sat boost.
Shout out to you, Mav. Speaking of Mav, I watched Top Gun 2 the other night. It was one of those. It's the second time I watched it. I think it's a great movie.
New one. Is this a new one? Yeah.
It was like 10 p.m. I was like, I can't sleep. I'll put on a movie, fall asleep. I was into the whole thing. I watched the whole thing, like, just gripped.
I finally watched 1917 on the plane.
Is that
the World War I movie?
That's the one take movie.
The what?
The one shot movie, or disguised as one shot.
What, the whole movie's supposed to be taken in one shot?
You didn't notice that?
Well, they definitely didn't take it in one shot, right?
Well, not really, but they made it look that way.
Right. It was pretty good. That war was a brutal war, man. God.
All war is brutal, man.
Yeah. Some are more than others.
Stack Bitcoin, don't drop bombs. And that's the situation here in the U.S. with the lead up to the presidential election.
So are they going to replace Biden? I know we're not a geopolitical podcast, but
I don't know. I had this discussion yesterday. I would not be surprised if they try to thrust us in the war and call off the election like that. I think I could see them.
No. You want to bet that there was going to be an election?
We'll see.
Do you want to bet?
No, I put like a 10 to 20% probability on that, but
I'll give you odds. I'll bet you 1,000,000 sats 5-1 that we have an election.
No, I'm good. I'm gonna stay humble.
Okay, actions speak louder than words. I think they're going to replace Biden though. They will replace him right before the election.
I think they have to at this point, and it seems like the media, despite
they wanted him dead. I like right after the debate, they just immediately started hitting him.
Yeah, I mean, it's very choreographed. Like, they pulled the debate up before the convention for the first time ever. immediately after, they're all like, he's got to go.
Yeah. There was no one that was there. There was like not a single talking head that was like, no, he should stay.
Yeah. I mean, he should. He's definitely mentally incompetent.
He's an old man.
Obviously not all there and should not be president. And
He shouldn't be driving a car.
no, he shouldn't be driving a car. He should not be leading a country. But it's completely different.
He probably doesn't drive still, right?
No, God no. I mean, the whole media landscape is completely disgusting, though.
President can't drive.
The
president's not allowed to drive. Do we even live in a free country? What if the president wants to drive? Is Logan looking it up right now?
That was a thing with some video with Obama about how Obama can't drive when he was president.
Maybe he can't drive because he's not a U.S. citizen. Doesn't have a. No, I'm kidding.
I'll be the first president to drive.
I don't want you to be president. You shouldn't be president.
No, I'm saying someone should do that. Fuck that. The problem is the only people that will run are sociopaths by design.
Yeah.
Because who the fuck wants that job?
No, but I do think it should be noted that like it's completely disgusting what the media, the Democratic power structure is doing. Like pretending like nobody had any clue. Like this guy couldn't form a sentence like immediately after. I mean, it was obvious to me at least in 2020. Like even last election.
Or do you think he's going to get replaced as well?
I think
I'm going to gambling.
I think he gets replaced. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's going to be, well, that's why I put like a 10 to 20% probability on there's no election, because if there,
again, I'll take that bet.
I mean, it seems like legally he has to be on the, like, you can't change the ballot in at least 3 swing states. And so they're sort of pot committed at this time. And so it seems like if they're worried, yeah, if they want to keep the money that they've raised, it would have to be a swap out with Kamala, considering she's on the ticket. But
I don't think they're going to do that. No, I mean, I think they can figure out a way to do it. You don't have to be like a political scholar. It doesn't matter. They'll just replace him with someone.
Yeah. We'll be here following as it develops, as it unravels.
If I give you, I'm such a gambler. If I pick a specific person that replaces him, would you give me odds on the person? Like, will you give me like, okay, I'll just say it. If I think he's going to get replaced with Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, Ooh. Would you give me 10-1 odds on that? On 1 million sats?
No, I'm not paying you 10 million sats.
I mean, I'm just picking like a no name. It's just a guess.
I think it's going to be Big Mike. If it's not Kamala, I think it's going to be Kamala. Kamala, Big Mike.
Like the unknown governor of Pennsylvania, swing state, way better choice than Michelle Obama. Okay, but
he's got a who's going to build the roads like we are. Remember when 95 fell and everybody thought it was going to take 6 months?
Okay, so I'll give you 10-1 that it's not Big Mike.
No, we're not betting. I'm not betting.
I'm in the mood. You know, the price goes on discount. Matt's just fishing for bets.
Nah,
this is what happens when you're all in on Bitcoin. You can only get it through leverage.
Yeah, the price is going to rip like 100,000 before the election. It's going to be like a $10,000 bet. My wife will not be happy.
Okay. Well, next topic. I'm glad we covered the U.S. politics.
Yes. Next topic is software updates. Got to open it back up. We got Bitcoin Knots version 27.1 released with Coin Grinder fixes and improvements. BTCD version 0.24.2 has been released with important security fixes, so you probably want to update that. And I imagine that has to do with SSH. It's BTCD.
What? Are you on to the BTCD update?
Yeah, the release includes important bug fixes related to subtle interactions related to reorgs in the UTXO set cache. these fixes are considered security critical. So if you're running BTCD, there has been a security critical fixes added to that repository.
No, the way the SSH vulnerability is an issue is it just provides an attacker access to your box wherever your box is hosted.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
okay.
beauty of most Bitcoin home nodes is that they're not actually exposed to the internet by SSH, but like all VPSs, almost all VPSs by default are. So,
Label Vase version 2.2.2 has been released with integrated QR code scanner. Great to see. Palindrome version. Phoenix Wallet version 2.3.1 and Phoenix D version 0.2.0, another palindrome, have been released with Bolt 12 offers.
Yeah, the first major wallet to add Bolt 12, which is a reusable payment code, instead of requiring a new invoice every time you receive, which is awesome. They also integrated a contact book. The negative is it's not Nostr based, but they're not quite bullish on Nostr over there, so wasn't really a surprise. But I do like that flow in general, right? Which is the flow people are used to with like a Venmo or a Cash App or a Revolut. It's you open the phone, you open the app, and you type in Marty, and you send them 10 sats. You don't like ask Marty to copy and paste an invoice into Signal or whatever. That's like ridiculous UX. So this is really awesome to see. It's still quite early. I believe it's not compatible with Core Lightnings yet. And I think they're working on that. I would also say I'm still really sad that they're not in the US App Store on iPhone. Like on Android, you could install the APK outside the App Store, but it was kind of a breath of fresh air being in Switzerland and just be able to blindly recommend Phoenix regardless if they used Android or iPhone.
Yeah. Shout out to the Phoenix team. This is massive. I don't think we mentioned it last week because I don't think they released it yet, but Strike released the playground for Bolt 12 as well, which is good to see.
I mean, the inside baseball on that was like Strike was actually for a long time holding out on adding support for LNURL and Lightning address because they just wanted to skip ahead and support Bolt 12. And then like calls from customers got quite loud and they're like, okay, we'll integrate both. But Bolt 12 should be soon on Strike.
Yeah. Soon TM. Moving down the list, LND version 0.18.1 beta has been released. It's a hot fix release. It's a minor hot fix release that resolves the issue that arises when handling an error after attempting to broadcast transactions of BTCD backend with an older version before 0.24.2 is used.
I think this has to do with that BTCD release because the project that most of us interact with that uses BTCD at this point is LND.
Yeah. All right, so be aware. If you're running LND and BTCD, Breeze SDK Core version 0.5.0 has been released. We got a major release. They have Greenlight Signer upgrade, keep closed channels in pending state until sweep, introduce unregistered webhook API, support LNURL Lightning query parameter, and some fixes. So if you're running Breeze SDK or building on that, you have some new functionalities there. Adding Greenlight. Bitcoin Keeper version 1.2.9 is released with cash transactions, health check for keys, and more. Blue Wallet version 6.6.8 has been released with full BIP47 support and send to silent payment addresses. So big privacy updates for Blue Wallet. BIP47 allows you to create a static on-chain address to receive with some privacy. And silent payments are a new privacy solution that people are beginning to implement into wallets. So beware if you're running Blue Wallet, you now have support of those two tools. Stack Duo version 1.2.0 has been released with Frost multi-sig, Tor support, RBF, and child pays for parent. So if you're using Stack Duo and you've had transactions stuck in the mempool because you did not have RBF and CPFP, you now have that.
And also it means you paid less than 6 sats per byte, and get over yourself.
Yeah.
Pay more than that. Like 7 sats per byte is basically free. It's pretty close. So why bet on mempools clearing again when you can just pay 7 sats per byte? Do you see Logan posted the stat in the Nostr stream? Since 1958, the president hasn't been allowed to drive on public roads.
Poor presidents.
Logan, you know you have a mic, right? You can just butt in and interrupt us if you want.
Please don't, though. Just please don't.
I give you permission to speak.
What do you want me to say?
This is why we don't let him do it.
Do we even live in a free country? That's insane to me that the president isn't allowed to drive. What else isn't he allowed to do? I know I personally would really miss driving.
What else isn't the president allowed to do?
Well, Logan, why don't you look that up and you could tell us in the Nostr chat if you find out other restrictions on the presidency. I got a breaking news update from NVK on Coinkite. Cold Card Q Edge release is out. So that's like the experimental release for the people that want to work with the more the more bleeding edge stuff, particularly TapScript and Taproot and Miniscript. So supposedly this is a really big release. He doesn't have a blog post, but if you are experimenting with the edge releases, this is now available. If you're just like an average person or like above average, just like don't. Just stick with the main releases. That's why the edge releases exist. Basically, it's like Rob Hamilton and like 6 people are using this edge release.
Yeah. So Rob, beware.
Yeah, if you're listening right now, Rob, the update is out.
Yeah. You heard it here first. Probably not, but you heard it here first. Satonomics. Free and open source software, Bitcoin only alternative to Glassnode has been released. This is cool to see.
Yeah, it is cool because Glassnode and the ilk are mostly black boxes. So, and they're quite expensive. So it's kind of nice to have a FOSS. I mean, one of the coolest parts about Bitcoin is that data set is freely analyzable by anybody. It's just there's been a lot of friction and lift in order to actually do it. So it's cool to see a tool like this exist, in my opinion.
Agreed. This is really cool. I mean, since you were a half an hour late, I had time to dive deep into the list and do research on all the topics. And this is a really cool project. Like something I've been looking for is somebody who runs the Ghost website and would like to post more of the long written content to Nostr and pub.pro, a Nostr based website for creators. And so you can essentially...
You're welcome for telling you it exists.
Yeah, it's sick. I want to talk to the guy who runs this because they've essentially enabled you to basically use open source Ghost themes to create a website that exists on Nostr. You get a dedicated MPub, and it's cool to see because they have like a monetization path too, 9,000 sats a month for premium users. And this is, I think, a product that highlights that Nostr is much bigger than just the social media use cases. Like this is something that gets me really excited if somebody runs a website.
So first of all, his name is Artur, and he goes by Brugman on Nostr. He's the lead maintainer of Nostr.band, which is like a Nostr Explorer almost, I would say, right? It has like Nostr stats. And if you're used to like a block explorer on Bitcoin, I would say like Nostr Band is like the Nostr Explorer. Really cool project. And this is, in practice, it's essentially like a different way of displaying Nostr events. So you're taking actual Nostr nodes. They're not It's not like there's a new spec here. But how does the user see, what does that look like for them, right? And in this case, it looks like a Ghost blog, and it even uses Ghost themes and has the whole comment section and all that stuff. And what does that result mean? It also means that you have this unique link for every post you have, right? That could be, tfttc.io/ whatever the name of the Nostr post is. So you can share it just like you would share a regular blog post link. Now, in terms of the monetization, if you use npub.pro, which is his hosted instance, yeah, he's monetizing that. But you can also self-host it, which is actually very similar to Ghost itself. Ghost you could self-host, or you could use Ghost's managed instance, and they charge quite a decent amount of money to use that.
Yeah, this is really, really exciting. And something I've been asked is like, when are you going to start posting the long form content to Nostr? We already do via Obla, but in terms of like hosting the website, like this seems like the first time where it's viable. I mean, we use Ghost and have a custom Ghost theme that I'm sure we could import and just begin to post directly to Nostr.
Yeah. Well, like I've said many times, I don't think we can comprehend all the different ways Nostr gets built out.
No, we cannot. Shout out to everybody pushing it forward. I recorded a TFTC episode earlier this morning, and Nostr was a big chunk of the conversation. And I mean, we've said it many times over the last couple of years on this show, and many times specifically over the last 6 months, but I don't think people really understand the gravity of being able to bootstrap an application via leveraging the social graph that exists on Nostr. Like, it's just going to be massive for unleashing innovation and really helping companies get off the ground rather quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where you start to see it really compound, right? And then it just like hits escape of velocity, and then, of course, then it just becomes so obvious in hindsight.
Like for this use case for npub.pro, like if you watch the demo video that's linked in the No BS Bitcoin post, like you just do Nostr sign. Like it's, instead of having to go out and have people individually sign up for the mailing list or to become members of TFTC.io, like anybody who has a Nostr pub key can immediately be a member by signing in and commenting and doing whatever. It's pretty insane.
And then you combine, it gets really interesting to me, like when you combine this with other projects, right? So it's like, you can see something like Highlighter by Pablo, right? Which is like more discovery focused. The plan is for it to be a home for long form content and media content, videos and audio and long form. And in that case, it's a little bit, it has this whole discovery element, right? Where I'm reading one article, and then maybe my web of trust is like, oh, you might like these different authors. And then at that point, once you find an author you like, maybe from that point on, you go to their npub pro, like dedicated, quote unquote site that has only their content there, right? So the combination of the two, because right now, when you look at long form, like it's quite siloed, right? It's like, okay, you go to TFTC, you read TFTC or whatever, maybe you choose to subscribe there. You go to No BS Bitcoin, you read that, you maybe decide to subscribe there. Substack and Medium tried to do like the discovery thing a bit, but they also like hide everything behind paywalls. So that adds its own level of friction. But this really goes, it's just cool how versatile it is and how many different ways someone can interact with content, where you can have both user choice on the reader side and the content creator side on how content is viewed and consumed.
Yeah, it's going to be massive. Shout out to everybody working on Nostr, working on Bitcoin. That's all we have for the list. I did want to bring up something somebody tweeted at me yesterday, or actually I think it was on Nostr. They sent a Nostr note wanting us to comment on an opinion piece that was published on Bitcoin Magazine this week, which basically put forth the idea that we should be taxing hodlers for not moving their Bitcoin. And the argument is that since they're not contributing, the argument is this individual and others who think like this believe that since you don't transact and pay transaction fees that compensate miners who are securing the network, you are doing the network a disservice compared to individuals and businesses that have a higher volume of transactions on the network. And to the person who asked us to comment on us, I wouldn't worry about a hodler tax entering
Never.
Bitcoin.
Full
It's insane.
stop. Will never happen. First of all, holding is using. We've already had this argument a million fucking times. Second of all, every holder has to make at least 2 Bitcoin transactions, receiving and sending. And they're going to make way more than that anyway. Third of all, the security budget is not a fucking issue because mempools will never clear again. So stop being bearish on Bitcoin and stay humble and stack size.
Yeah. This idea that hodlers aren't users is completely asinine. And we've broached the subject many times on this show. But yeah, hodlers are users. They're using Bitcoin as a savings vehicle. There's no way to rationalize anything else. Like if you want to,
This was like 2017 was one of the key schisms of 2017. This idea that like holding wasn't using, this idea of denigrating, and also like not calling us Bitcoin holders, but calling us Bitcoin hoarders, those evil Bitcoin hoarders who are just buying and holding Bitcoin. God forbid someone tries to save some money for long term. What a sinful act. It's just fucking crazy. And I another thing to add there is like, the Bitcoin price or the purchasing power of Bitcoin obviously is impacted by how much illiquid supply there is. Like if there are long-term holders on the network, everyone's purchasing power net is higher as a result. That's how markets work. It seems pretty obvious to me. So yeah. Anyway, they got what they wanted, which was a lot of clicks on that article. We do not have it on the list.
Our good friend Weird Robot. I didn't want to talk about it until somebody like said, "Will you please address it?" I was like, "All right, we'll address it." Our good friend Weird Robot makes a good point in the Zap.stream live chat, which is hodlers pay for what they use, which is like transaction fee is essentially the consumption fee for when you actually transact. So you are paying when you do inevitably transact, which I think most people will.
I think Marty specifically should pay a higher tax though, because he zaps so little. Marty, have you zapped today?
I have.
It says you have not.
Weird Robot, go fix your site because. Oh no, it has. I cannot tell a lie. I cannot tell a lie. 4th of July. It's been a little over a day.
Send your contribution to someone.
Who wants to zap?
Your daily ritual.
You know what? Vitor. I'm zapping Vitor from Amethyst. He deserves it.
Well deserved.
Yeah.
So
refresh the site. Let's see how reactive this site is, Logan.
It worked.
It worked.
Look at that. Weirdo Robot. What a builder. The site worked. That was a good test. I'm reminded we forgot to talk about it last week. Tickets are selling fast to our live event in Nashville, Hot Style Takeover. If you're going to be in Nashville that week, the week of the conference, what day is it? July 25th is
July
our live
25th, 4 to 7 at 6th and Lindsay.
Now it's like 4 to 11 p.m. because 7 to 11 is going to be Zeus's after party. And if you buy a ticket to the Hot Style Takeover, you get included access to that. So it's really quickly becoming into an all evening event. And Marty and I have been naturally heavily involved in the planning process, even though the PubKey guys are mostly the creative geniuses behind a lot of it. and it's going to be quite wild. It's going to be a quite wild event, and I'm very excited about it, and I hope to see many of you freaks out there. But the website is.
You missed it on our catch-up call this week since you were in Switzerland, but there's going to be a hot dog eating contest at the event. So if you're a freak out there who thinks you can house some hot dogs, there will be a hot dog eating contest during one of the missions.
What do they get for it?
I don't know if we decided that yet. You'll get something. You'll get a good pat on the back if you win, at least.
You get to, if you win the hot dog contest, you get to live through Mandibles than Bitcoin Standard with the rest of us.
Incredible.
No, there'll be some kind of prize. There'll be a good prize, the best prize. It's going to be the best prize.
A firm handshake and a congratulations.
But the link is pubkey.bar/RHR. You can pay with Bitcoin. You can pay with fiat. And we'd love to have you there. We tried to keep the prices low as reasonable. This is not like a massive money-making adventure for us, but it's going to be a really fun time, and I'm particularly excited that this is going to be the first year that it doesn't require a conference ticket to come and attend.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Pubkey.bar/RHR. Get your ticket. Selling out fast, and if you think you can eat some hot dogs, let us know. We need to fill out the competition. Just tweeted us. I don't know. Noster. Yeah, annoy the Pubkey guys on Noster.
Just tag on them. I want to compete in the hot dog contest.
Yeah,
I think there'll be other contests too, right?
There should be. Yeah. To everybody in the Zap.stream, comment saying I should zap the comment section. Unfortunately, I don't have an NSEC in my browser right now, so I can't do it. But
there you go.
I had to go on the Primal and do it.
Awesome rip.
Great rip. I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to go enjoy happy hour on the beach.
Enjoy the beach. Happy Independence Week, everybody. It was pretty cool. It was interesting celebrating 4th of July with a bunch of Europeans. There's still a lot of respect for at least what Independence Day stands for, if not, where America currently is at. But freedom isn't free. It's actually quite expensive. So we got to do the thing.
Yeah, got to fight for it. Got to work. Go out there and act. Go forth and build the world that you want to see. That's what we're doing here. We'll see you guys next week.
Stay humble, stack sets.